Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I have Simon Says Stamps March 2020 card kit on my desk. This one is called Stronger Together, and I'm going to do a quick unboxing for you before we get into our card projects. Let's start off with the set of watercolor pencils. You get 24. You also get some craft tacky glue. This is a little die that says hello. Here's a little coupon for $5 off your next purchase. You get 3 envelopes in white, mint, and metallic lavender. These are some custom Simon Says Stamp watercolor cards. I just love the flowers on these. They're beautiful. Here is a pack of Moda Scrap pattern paper. This one is called Spring Flowers, and I really love Moda Scrap pattern paper. Let me flip through these for you. They are single-sided. I really love the soft watercolor feel to these patterns. I really love this striped one here, if I had to choose a favorite, but they're all just gorgeous, and they have a nice weight to them. Next up is a beautiful stamp set. This one is also called Stronger Together. I just love the delicate lines of these floral images. The sentiments are really fun and unique, and you get quite a few in this set. Here is a sheet of the Simon Says Stamp glitter paper. And then you always get an example page. There's a lot of beautiful inspiration. The cardstock this time is cornflower blue, lavender, mint, and 120-pound white. I usually always make card bases out of this piece of paper just because it is so heavy duty and nice. Okay, for card number 1, I pulled out the watercolor pencils as well as one of the floral watercolor cards. I really love the look of this poppy, and it's a nice large image to color in. However, the colored pencils are a bit disappointing. I didn't have high hopes for them anyway, but they're just not very pigmented. So I started out trying to get a smooth blend between my red and my yellow, but it just looked boring. So at the end, I just started slapping down color in the hopes of livening it up a bit. I really didn't like how it turned out, so I decided to just start cutting it up. And this definitely did improve it. So I cut it down the center, and now I'm fussy cutting around the edges. I'm going to put that away for a minute while I work on my sentiment. It says, "Though we're far apart, you're always in my heart." And I'm just stamping that up with some Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. And I have to do that a couple of times to get it nice and dark. But that is such a fun sentiment. I just love it. I do end up fussy cutting this out. I start out with a pair of long, sharp scissors, but I change them out for a smaller pair just so I can get into the sides of this sentiment. Here we go. Here's my cutter bee scissors. I cut down a piece of lavender cardstock, and I'm popping up my flowers with some foam pieces. I'm putting one on the left side and then one on the right. This way you don't have to see my awful painting head on, just bits of it at a time, and it makes it look fuller, like there's more flowers. I'm going to pop up my sentiment in the middle of the card, and I'm going to use some of the glue included in the kit to glue it to my card base. I'm also going to add some iridescent bubbles from Studio Katja. I love these bubbles. They come in 3 different sizes in this pack. I'm just going to put 3 of them around my card. And that's it for card number 1. I came really close to throwing my painting in the garbage, but I really like how it turned out in the end. Kind of different. On my next card, I'm going to play with another floral watercolor card. This time, I pulled out my Arteza colored pencils, and I'm going to color it in with these. The piece of pattern paper that you see in the top left is my inspiration. I just love this piece. And I pulled out colors that kind of match it. I'm going to be a little bit darker, though, because I want my focal piece to be really bright. So I started with my darkest color at the base of the petal. The colors will get gradually lighter as I work my way up. And I'm using some blues and purples and even a gray for my lightest color. And I just go back and forth, blending these together to get a nice smooth transition. I'm also using my darkest colored pencil just to add some shadows to the lines of each petal. I'm just going to show you the coloring of one petal for the sake of time. I do all of them the same. And I don't even color in the whole piece because I'm going to make a frame with a piece of pattern paper and frame this flower. I think these are dogwood blossoms, and I've never seen any this color before. I think they're usually white or pink, but I wanted this to be purple to match the beautiful pattern paper. And now for the tree branch, I'm starting with my brown. I do several layers of colors with this branch. I'm going to come in with my green, and then I also come in with a gray. And then I just go back and forth with these three colors and darkening it up in places, just kind of following the artist's lines to know where to place the shadows. If you want to know the exact colors that I'm using, I will have them listed over at my blog, and the link to my blog is in the description below. I'm really enjoying using these Arteza colored pencils. They just blend beautifully together, and the colors are just vibrant and lovely. I'm cutting down my pattern paper to 4 by 5 1/4. I want the cornflower blue cardstock to show around the edges. Such a pretty blue, and it matches well with the pattern paper as well as the coloring. And then I'm using a Simon Says stamp die for this. This is one of their fun dies that also cuts out a very thin frame, and I've just been enjoying using these very much. However, I don't use the frame for this card, but I do save it for another project. I'm going to pop up my frame with some foam tape. This will help to add some fun dimension and interest to the card. I'm using some Arteza foam tape for this. I love this big roll. It's going to last me a while. Or maybe not. I do use it a lot. Now I can peel off the release paper and decide where to put this frame. I only colored in the bits of the flower that I thought would be showing, but I could always come back in with more colored pencil if I need to. But I just want that main flower to be the focus and a little bit of the stem. And now I can cut off the overhang, trying to be very careful not to cut into the pattern paper. And then my next step will be to add some liquid adhesive behind this panel and attach it to the cornflower blue cardstock. Stamped my sentiment off camera. It says, "Hello friend, I miss you." And I also pulled out some enamel dots, and these are from Trinity Stamps. They're called Fortune Teller, and I really love these two. They're just beautiful. And here is my completed card. I love how these enamel dots pick up the colors of the colored pencils behind them. On card number 3, I'm stamping one of the images from the stamp set onto a piece of pattern paper. I usually use my Mini Misty, but this time I had to pull out the original size just because this image is so long. The pattern on this piece of paper is very subtle, but it's pretty. I thought it would be perfect to do a little bit of coloring on. So the size of this piece of paper is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. And once I'm done stamping it once, I'm going to flip it over and then stamp it on the other side. And it'll stamp in the exact same place, just on the opposite side of the paper. and it kind of creates a pretty frame. I'm going to be stamping my sentiment in between these lines. This is such a fun stamp. So I'm not going to stamp out my sentiment with black ink like I usually do. Once in a while, I do like to bring in a color. And I chose kind of a purpley pink color. I'll have the color listed over at my blog, but I'm going to match it up to some more colored pencils. Doesn't that look cute? So much fun. I'm going to stamp it one more time just to make it crisp and nice. There we go. And now I can pull out my colored pencils. This is some really fast coloring I'm doing here. I'm just using a purple colored pencil at the base of my leaves. And I start out putting down a very light layer. And then I come in with the pink to blend that out. And I allow the color of the pattern paper to show through at the tips of these leaves. I'm trying to get a nice smooth blend. And the coloring was looking kind of pale. So I'm going to put more pressure with my colored pencils at the base of these leaves. Just really darken it. This really makes the color pop and come alive. I'm going back to the first two leaves and darkening them. I'm also going to come in with a green colored pencil and just put one stripe down the center of these vines. This just adds a fun touch as well, just a little more color to the card. That looks so cute. What a wonderful stamp. So I'll finish coloring my leaves. I'm going to color all of them, the top and the bottom. But I do most of that off camera for the sake of time. I'm going to trim down the top and the bottom of this piece of pattern paper, just cutting off 1/8 of an inch because I want to use this pretty sparkly pink cardstock. And I'm going to cut out a strip or 2 strips of this. This is going to add a fun border to my card. I'm going to use some liquid adhesive and glue this down to the top of my card. And the second strip I'll glue down at the bottom. I'm using my Jackie's Craft Table glue just because the tacky glue clogged. And I was too lazy to go get a pin to unclog it. So I'm just using what is available and what is not clogged. Now I can cut off the excess. And I'm just going to glue the pattern paper down flat onto the card base. I'm using some dot liner for this. I'm gluing on a few of the fortune teller enamel dots. And then here is a look at the completed card. I really love the simplicity of this one, and it was fast to put together. I'm using another floral watercolor card. I just couldn't get enough of these. They're just so beautiful. And I'm going to color in around these daisies. I want these daisies to be white. And to make them appear white, you need to put a background behind them. So I'm using one of the blue watercolor pencils. And I'm just kind of scribbling some sky behind them. Once I get done with this coloring, I am going to activate it with my aqua brush. And the pigment is just very pale, so it doesn't turn bright. Usually with watercolor pencils, you put the pencil down and once you activate it, it turns really bright. But that's okay. I still liked the way it turned out. It does smoothen out your lines a little bit when you activate it with water. And I didn't take it all the way to the edge because I am going to cut this out with my scissors. I'm putting a little bit of yellow and brown for the centers of these flowers. I'm going to use a gray colored pencil to add some shadows onto the flower petals. This will help to make it look not so flat. And I'm going to activate with water as well. This is some really fast coloring for you. And now for the stems. I didn't take the time to swatch out these watercolor pencils, so I'm just trying to figure out which greens that I like the best. As I said before, these pencils do not have much pigment to them at all. But I do like to give everything a try that comes in the kit. It's just fun to play with. I do allow this panel to dry a little bit, and I flap it around a lot to get it to hurry up and dry before I cut it out with my scissors. I guess I could have used my heat tool to dry it, but I don't like to use the heat tool too much because it does make your panels warp a little bit. I'm just going to cut around the petals. I made sure to color with the blue colored pencils around them so that none of the white of the paper would be showing. I'm using a scalloped edge die to cut out a strip of paper. And now for the sentiment. This one says, "Hello again, I missed you." And I'm stamping it in the top right corner. Most of this panel is going to be covered with my floral scene. I used some foam tape behind it. This will pop it up off the card and make it look extra cute. And then I can just carefully adhere that down. There we go. And then as for this little strip of paper, I'm just going to use some liquid glue behind it. And this just adds a fun touch, adds a little something extra to the card. And now I can add some more enamel dots. These dots are from the In Love Art Shop. And I really love these because they're just bright and clear and really show up well on the card. And that completes card number 4. I'm also going to come in with my Spectrum Noir glitter pen just to the centers of these flowers. Just adds a little bit of sparkle. It's hard to catch on the camera, but it sure looks pretty in real life. And here is a close-up look at this card. The sentiments from this kit are just lovely. For my last card, I wanted to showcase some of the beautiful pattern paper, but I'm going to start with my sentiment. I want to stamp it in an ombre of pink, so I have 3 different inks here. I'm going to start with my lightest color up at the top, and then I use a baby wipe before I stamp it down just to kind of soften the edges so that I don't have any harsh lines. And I do stamp it up more than you see here. I had to cut out a lot for the sake of time, but you'll get the general idea. And then on the bottom, I stamp the darkest color. And then I have to come in at the top because the pink color I used at the top was just too light. I chose a piece of green cardstock as well as several of the patterned papers and cut them down into strips. The green cardstock is going to go right onto the base of my card. Now I can start adhering these strips of pattern paper. I think they're also beautiful and they just complement each other very well. I'm using the lines on my mat to get it straight onto my card. And then I wanted this piece of striped paper to be on top because it is my favorite. It's so pretty. I'll put a little more adhesive on this. And then add it on top of all of the other papers. I'll press that down into place, and then I can cut off the overhang. I like to open up the card base. It just makes it easier to see. Now I can add my sentiment, and I am going to pop it up with some foam tape. And then this is where I was going to stop. I thought my card would be complete here, but it just needed a little something more. It does look pretty, but I always like to push the envelope a little bit. So I'm going to put this back into my mini Misty. I'm going to use one of these beautiful floral stamps, just this smaller one, and I'm going to stamp it right on top of this pattern paper. Just want that centered under the sentiment. I'm going to stamp this up with some more black ink. This is Memento Tuxedo black ink. And then I could have even stopped here, but I couldn't help myself. I just needed to add some color to this pretty flower. So I'm using the same colored pencils that I used on the card with the vine image on it. I'm just putting a little touch of color just at the base of the petals. I'm not going all the way up because I want the cute green lines of the paper to show through. I'm putting my darkest color down first, and then I add a little bit of the light pink. And I'm pressing kind of hard just to make the color dark. And it matches the sentiment really well. I'm also going to use the same green colored pencil to add some color to the leaves, as well as to the little stem here. I always like to have my colored pencils sharpened to a very fine point so you can get in these little places. I pulled out my Spectrum Noir clear glitter pen to add some fun sparkle to this flower. I seem to use this a lot lately. And then to add even more sparkle, I'm going to use the same enamel dots as I did on my last card. They are from the In Love Arts shop. And then here is a close-up look at my last card. I think this one is my favorite of the whole set, but I had so much fun creating all of these. Thank you so much for joining me today, my crafty friends. I hope that you were inspired, and I hope you get the chance to create some wonderful cards of your own today. I'll be back soon with another card video. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying healthy and happy. Thanks for watching. Bye.